Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know that there could be a more potent symbol of government waste and inefficiency than the spectacle of federal office buildings just sitting there empty with taxpayers footing the bill. I'm seeing that GSA manages more than 8,300 owned and leased assets totaling over 365 million square feet. That's easy to remember. It's 1 million square feet for every day of the year. That the cost of operating, maintaining, and leasing office space costs $8 billion annually. And yet, a report last year showed an occupancy rate, an average building occupancy rate of just 12%. 12%. So it's interesting because we have this emergent set of talking points here in the Capitol among some that no, the federal government is perfect. There's no need to modernize it, no need to scale it back, no need to improve efficiency in the use of taxpayer resources. And then you can view alongside that sentiment this picture of all these federal buildings just sitting there being paid for with no one in them. We even have reports of shadow or dark space in federal buildings and leases, which are just not used at all and not even assigned, simply just sitting there. This is something that American taxpayers have every right to be outraged about. And I think that, Mr. Winstead, you put sort of a cost per employee on office space for some departments. Would you mind repeating those numbers? I believe it was in the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, Congressman, we, in our report in March of last year, there was data in it that showed, based on the occupancy, as you suggest, 20% or average of 20%, what is the cost to GSA of maintaining that building per employee? And it varied from Commerce, 160, to Department of Energy, 130, but it's totally unjustified.
That's per employee that's actually present, or per just employee?
That show up.
That show
per
up.
Employee that show up versus per day during the course of the year.
Because for everyone that shows up, 4 don't show up, is what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in a private sector office building, the cost of an employee space is about $10,000 a year.
Interesting.
So
the average cost is over 10 times higher for the government than for the private sector.
Yeah, more than that. And again, it's an impact of COVID. It's an impact of telework policy and work habits since telework happened. It's obviously an impact of OPM and their directive in terms of federal employees' presence in office. But it really has, the last 2 or 3, 4 years since we've been looking at this, it's really gotten worse, right, in terms of the utilization.
I mean, that's fascinating because even the private sector has had, underutilization issues, and you're saying even given that, we're paying 10 times more per employee than they are in the private sector.
In the instance of those buildings, at the time we looked at utilization versus the cost the GSA pays to maintain that building per year, yes. It's over 10 times.
I also found it interesting that the GAO has noted that agencies are reluctant to share their headquarters with other agencies, and they cite a lack of mission alignment, which is a little hard for me to understand because, after all, these are all agencies that are serving Americans, are part of the federal government. That seems like enough of a mission alignment. But even if there was none whatsoever, I walk into business buildings all the time that have completely unrelated businesses working next to each other. But also, maybe it would be good if the agencies were talking to each other a little more. One of the problems that we have in our bureaucracy is that things are so siloed, so you get an approval from this agency, but then you're waiting years to get one for this agency, or you ask this agency to get the approval, and they said they need to wait for that agency, and apparently they have no way to talk to each other and coordinate. So maybe if they could pick up the paper and walk it across the hall to someone down the hall, that might make the federal government work better together a little bit. So what do you think, Mr. Maroney? Is there something to be said for trying to get agencies under the same roof?
Oh, definitely. Agencies, that reluctance is not acceptable.
Thank you very much. Hopefully that's something that we can work on, and I think that we can not only save taxpayers a lot of money, but send a message about the newfound paradigm of efficiency and modernization that we're trying to usher in at the federal level. I yield back.